did you have any changes on those?
All good.
All right, thank you. Next up, Bill, sales tax update for September. I think you're on mute, Bill.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you for that. So I'm here to talk about sales tax for the month of September. Sales tax grew by a surprising 12.1% compared to the same month a year ago in 2021. And that marks the second month in a row that we have seen sales tax grow by more than 10%. So an interesting and somewhat surprising result. Two things I wanted just to add to that. One of the reasons, and this will sound familiar from last month, one of the reasons that we saw sales taxes grow by a fairly healthy percent was variable sales tax payments. So we received a total of $866,000 worth of variable sales tax payments from companies that I track. And that was just over double what we got a year ago in September. So if you were to sort of pull that out, and that's something that I like to do, if I pulled that number out and just had sales tax, variable sales tax grow by the rate of inflation, which is what I would call a neutral rate of growth, the total sales tax payments that we received would have not been up 12.1%, but instead 10.1%. So it would have dropped a little bit. So I think in some ways that's a little bit more of a fair assessment of how at least the consistent taxpayers are growing. And a final thing about sales tax, we look at 15 different sectors and try to look at who's growing and who's not growing. And in each of the last 2 months, and these are the months again where we've seen sales tax grow in excess of 10%, 12 of the 15 sectors that we track have shown positive growth in each of the last 2 months. And just to compare that, so that means 12 of 15 grew, 3 were in the negative. In June and July, when sales tax really were showing some signs of lagging some, we had 7 sectors in June, another 7 sectors in July that were each in the negatives. So the point there being that what we're seeing now is growth that's fairly across the board. It's not all sectors, but most sectors are now showing growth. So surprisingly, things are looking reasonably strong at the moment. And I'll end there and just see if anyone has any questions.
Councilmember Zvonek, any questions?
No, just good news. Thanks for now.
Yep. Appreciate that, Bill.
Anytime. I appreciate your attention.
All right. Next up into the general business, Jackie Amon on the 2022 fall supplemental.
Hi, this is Jackie, Budget Program Manager with the Budget Office. And since we had so much fun last night with budget, we thought we'd just keep it going today with the fall supplemental. Actually, I bet when you read through these, you saw that they were pretty all straightforward requests. As you know, early in the budget process, departments prepare a mid-year expenditure projection. This informs the Budget Office and Council of potential supplemental needs which are noted in the budget document. Some of the needs identified are included in this fall process, and others will be included in the spring process once we have final actual data. Like you, the Budget Office does not like surprises, so I'm happy to say that many of the items included this fall were projected. You may have noticed that some of the technical amendments were not projected. In this case, they were not projected due to timing and are all either requests to appropriate grants and other outside funds or are transfers. In either case, there's no impact to fund balances. So with that, there are several people here in case you have any detailed questions we can address.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I mean, everything on there looked pretty straightforward to me, so I didn't really have any questions. Councilmember Zvonek, did you have any questions?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, then I think we can move this forward, Jackie.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too.
Let's see. Let me get back to my agenda. Next up, disparity study presentation and update. I don't know. Bren, do you want to start, or are we going to have Michelle? And you're on mute, Bren.
Sorry, thank you very much. I'm Bryn Fillinger. I'm Manager of Purchasing Services.
This item will provide an update to the disparity study that is being completed by our consultant, Griffin and Strong. We have a representative from Griffin and Strong here with us today, Michelle Clark Jenkins, who will be providing the update. But first, I'd like to do a brief overview as to how Griffin and Strong was selected.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Michelle,
Trinity,
do we have the slideshow ready to go? Okay.
Yes, I'm working on pulling it up. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Sorry, Trinity. Okay.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Okay. If you want to move to the next screen.
Oh yeah, it's loading.
Oh, okay.
So waiting to hit present. And there we go.
I'll go ahead. Okay. Thank you very much. So in 2022, council approved an amount of $500,000 for a disparity study and a request for proposals to select the consultant to complete the study was issued in November of 2021. The RFP was issued on the Rocky Mountain e-purchasing system. This is a system where the city issues all of its bids and RFPs to ensure full and open competition. We received 3 proposals from BBC Research and Consulting, Griffin and Strong, and Keene Independent Research. After the written proposals were scored, all 3 firms were shortlisted and moved to the second phase of the solicitation process, which consisted of interviews. After interviews, Griffin and Strong was selected as the top-ranked firm. A fee in the amount of $336,975 was negotiated with Griffin and Strong, which was reported on Purchasing's weekly report to council dated March 7th, 2022. Subsequently, a contract was successfully awarded to Griffin and Strong. Okay. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Bryn. My name's Michelle Clark Jenkins. I head the consulting group of Griffin and Strong, and with me today is Trinity Williams, who's the deputy project manager on this project. So first, let me tell you a little bit about our firm. We're a law and public policy consulting firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been involved in this disparity research for more than 30 years. We have 5 attorneys on our team, 2 PhD economists, a PhD in social psychology, a PhD in public policy, and a PhD in anthropology. This is all our consulting division. This is all we do, is disparity research. We do it all over the country. We develop contract compliance programs. We do development, training, and supplier diversity consulting. We draft legislation. You know, we're totally immersed in this area. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Oh, it moved. Oh, sorry. I don't know why.
Okay, so for backup one, we went one too far.
I think my computer is delayed.
Okay. Well, let me just talk a little bit about what a disparity study is, so everyone's clear on what it is. It's really an objective research tool to determine disparities in government procurement. That's really what it was created to do. And it's to determine based on race or gender whether there are disparities in the procurement process. And the court actually, in creating disparity studies or a factual predicate for race and gender conscious program, uses the term inference of discrimination. And what it means in that is the culmination of kind of all of what's happened throughout history, and that has resulted in inequities or disparities. And so we conduct these disparity studies. There are times when they're used for race and gender neutral groups, just really to determine benchmarks, but really they were created to determine whether there are disparities based on the race and gender of firm ownership. When we complete this study, we will be presenting our findings and we'll be making recommendations for policy changes. Just in terms of our team, our project executive, Rodney Strong, was part of the lawyers and economists who watched the Croson case, which is really the foundation and the seminal case behind doing disparities, watched that case come up through the courts, and was part of the team that really came up with a kind of an anecdote to that Supreme Court case. So he was the director of the City of Atlanta's Department of Contract Compliance, and he was the project manager for the first post-Croson disparity study, and he was the principal architect of the City of Atlanta's MWBE program that became the model for the nation. Our principal researcher, Dr. Vince Egan, has conducted over 150 disparity studies, and he has successfully defended 6 studies as an expert witness, and actually recently a 7th one that was not one of our studies, but we came in to help defend it, and it was settled over the last year and a half. Next slide, please. Now you can go one more. So
Okay.
again, we do disparity studies because of this case I mentioned to you, City of Richmond, Virginia versus J. Croson, a 1989 court decision. It was really the first time the court equated under the 14th Amendment malevolent discrimination based on race. And at that point, they hadn't considered gender yet, but later gender fell under this because of race, and equated that with remedial programs that are based on race. So what the court really said is anytime you're looking at race, we are going to kind of examine anything you do based on that with strict scrutiny. And any of you who are attorneys in law school probably learned strict in theory, fatal in fact. And so it's a really high bar that we have to kind of cross over in order for any government entity to have race and gender conscious programs. So we have to have a factual basis in evidence, which is what the disparity study is. And our methodology is dictated by case law. And then anything we recommend as an output of our study has to be tied to a finding from our study to avoid any over or under inclusion. Next slide, please. So this is really our study process, which is why it takes at least a year or so to complete a disparity study. Again, it's based in legal, it's based in case law. So there's a legal analysis. We do a deep dive into your policies, primarily to see if there's anything in your policies that on their face would present barriers to women and minority-owned firms. We also are looking to see if everybody understands the policy and if there's a difference between policy and implementation of that policy. We do a lot of collecting of data. We are looking at 5 years of all of your spend. So every payment that was made to a vendor over a 5-year period, we are looking at where those dollars ultimately ended up, whether a prime or a sub. We do a lot of data cleaning. So one of the kind of collateral benefits of our study is that we will give you some data reform recommendations because we will be elbow deep in all of your data. Our first analysis, once we've cleaned everything, is a relevant market analysis. That's really the parameters of our study. So where are the firms located that we are including in our study? It's not a national analysis, it's a marketplace analysis. So we kind of borrow from antitrust law and look at where you are actually spending at least 75% of your dollars. So we'll start with the city of Aurora, and then we kind of begin to radiate out and look at firm locations until we get to where you're spending about 75% of your dollars. And that will become the relevant market analysis place, where firms located only in those relevant market are included in our analysis. So for example, if your relevant market is your MSA, then firms in California wouldn't be included in that analysis. So then the simplest analysis is utilization, where are you actually spending your dollars and with whom. We also look at what level of contracting you're doing. Are you doing a bunch of big contracts? Are you doing a bunch of little contracts? It's one of the ways we look at capacity, which is a lot of the arguments in looking at available firms is to say, well, these are a bunch of small firms, they can't do $5 million contracts. Well, that may be true, but not all your contracts, your prime contracts are $5 million contracts. What is your average contract? And then we also control for capacity by looking at all dollars you spend, but then we'll look at awards that are smaller awards to see if there's still a disparity when we look at smaller awards. Then we look at availability. Who are the ready, willing, and able firms in your marketplace who can perform in the 5 categories that we're looking at? Construction, construction-related professional services like A&E, other professional services like doctors, lawyers, generally licensed areas or consultants, and then other services, which will be IT, marketing, advertising, janitorial, lawn mowing, all those kinds of things, and then goods and commodities, which are anything tangible. So we'll look at all the firms in that market area who can perform these services, and then a disparity study is really comparing the two. If African-American owned engineering firms are 10% of the engineers in your marketplace, are they getting 10% of your engineering dollars? That's a simple disparity. And then we look to see if the disparity is statistically significant. And then ultimately we do a regression analysis to see what was the likely cause of the disparity. So that's done by equalizing out other kinds of causes. So we look at, in comparison, like firms, we look at, if you equal out revenue of firms, how long firms have been in business, the number of employees, when you kind of take all those things out, do you still have a disparity? And if you do, the courts have said we now can make that inference of discrimination, which again is the current effects of past discrimination. Then we do one more analysis, a private sector analysis, which looks at your marketplace. And the reason for that is if there have been certain areas of our country, you might have had 0 Hispanic American owned construction firms, 0 were used. When you compare the two, you get parity, therefore no discrimination. Well, we have to look further than that and look at what is perhaps depressing availability in your marketplace. So we look at credit markets, we look at building permit data to see what's happening in the construction industry. We look at the likelihood of self-employment in order to determine whether there's discrimination in the marketplace. Then critical is our involvement of your business community and anecdotal evidence, because at the end of the day, we may find a statistical disparity, but then we have to look and say, what can be our recommendations to fix that? And we look to your business community, all of your business community, just not minority and women, to say, what is the process like? What works and what doesn't work? And we ask them to tell us their experiences doing business or attempting to do business with the city. And if they haven't even attempted, why not? And we combine that with our own experience of best practices all over the country and our deep dive into your policy. And then ultimately, we make our final findings and recommendations. Next slide, please. We do the work in the data. I know some of you are involved with, the data that the city has, and we do all the work. Unfortunately, we can't come in and pull your electronic data. We would do that as well as if you would let us. Anything that has to be entered, we'll enter data ourselves. We'll provide that manpower. We clean the data. We have 2 economists, so any data you don't have, we will fill the data gaps. We maintain a chain of evidence. We presume in our work that it is a rarity that there's ever a challenge to a program, but we become your expert witness if there is. So we keep a good chain of evidence and we have a very transparent process. Next slide, please. So at the end of the study, we have findings and recommendations. We do look at recommending race and gender neutral remedies first. We don't have to exhaust them or only do them, but we have to strongly consider race and gender neutral remedies for any disparities we see. If then we believe there should be race and gender conscious programs, we will recommend those as well. Next slide. So this is where we are in the process. Our survey of business owners, preparation of the database, and anecdotal evidence is really where we are now, which is the fall of 2022. In the winter, we'll be working on the private sector analysis, completing the statistical, and then in the spring, we'll be presenting our findings and recommendations. Okay, I think that's it. There are, you'll notice, and Trinity, maybe if you could put it also in the chat room, we do have a dedicated email address. So anybody who has questions or comments, the community, you can always direct them to us at the Aurora CO study at gspclaw.com. There is also a website that you all are maintaining, engageaurora.org/disparity study. So we're open for any questions you have.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Councilmember Zvonek, any questions?
Just one. So as you're kind of going through that process of, trying to identify disparities if they exist, you talked about, you gave an example of, say, there's 10% of engineering firms are minority owned, or whatever the example might have been. But our contracts, our bids weren't 10%. Do you then look into that next set of data and say, well, how many of those businesses applied? And then from there, what kind of outreach have we done to get them to apply? Is that how that works in terms of like digging deeper into that?
Yeah, so that's part of our regression analysis is we look at the percentage in comparison of bids. So in comparison to non-MWBEs, did MWBEs bid more or less based on their percentage of availability in the marketplace? So we look at it as an overall regression analysis.
Okay. Okay, that makes some sense.
We do look at things like that, because that is an issue. Did minority and women-owned firms not get awards because they're not bidding as much relatively as they should be? So we do look at things like that in the regression analysis.
Okay, and then I assume you would make recommendations from there if that situation were to present itself, saying, "Hey, is the city or whichever the governmental agency making appropriate attempts to reach out and solicit their bids?"
Yeah. So there are lots of things. I mean, outreach is many times you'll see us recommend outreach because it solves a lot of issues. It also solves miscommunications because sometimes we'll find that what we get back from the community is contrary to what you're doing. You're doing something positive and the community says, no, they're not doing that. Well, that's a communication issue. So now we have to talk about how do we change perceptions.
Okay, that's all I had.
Mm-hmm.
All right, appreciate that, Councilmember Zvonek. And I do not have any questions. Guess looking forward to the results and the recommendations and things like that next spring. So thank you, Michelle, for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
All right, next up, Cesarina. I don't know, do you want to present these items together separately? What is...
I'm happy to do them together and then open up for questions. Basically, today we have 2 Metropolitan District Board appointments being requested and 2 bid appointments, Board of Directors being requested. The vacancies vary as to reason, and I'm happy to go into those if you would like, but the common theme between all 3 of these items is that they need board members appointed and they're requesting that City Council do so.
Yeah, I don't have any questions and I'm fine with moving them forward. Councilmember Zvonek?
Same. No questions.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Scott Newman, Q4 2022 IT update.
Good afternoon, Council. Sorry, give me just a second to go to the share here. And let me know if, are you able to see that, or are you seeing a presentation? Are you seeing the presentation or in this?
No, we're seeing a slide with a data center.
Okay, so you're not seeing the outline form, basically.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you, Council. Just wanted to give you an update on where we're at here, Q4 IT. So couple areas I want to call out is some of our major accomplishments that we've had so far this year. I will be honest with you, the last 6 weeks have been extremely busy for the IT department. The computer-aided dispatch replacement system did go live on September 13th, and by and large was very successful. As usual with any implementation of this size, there were a few fallout issues that came out, but we were able to get any critical issues resolved in the first week. And then by the second week, we had many of the more minor issues resolved as well. So by and large, that was incredibly successful. Big impact for both police and fire as well as the dispatch center. Then moving forward on October 3rd, we rolled out ServiceNow. So ServiceNow is our new help desk system. It is much more than just a help desk system. In the future, it can also help improve other city processes and also do a lot of automations. We really had to shove this one through in a crunch because our friends at Microsoft informed us that a dependency from one of our old help desk system was actually going to be turned off on October 1st. They since changed that, but we pushed forward to go with our initial go live with ServiceNow, so that is up and running. Again, we're doing some cleanup of that go live, but we plan to continue to roll out more of the advanced features over 2023. Our focus this year was just to get it up and running in place to replace the legacy system we had. 1 week after that, the water billing system went live, happy to report, and there were very minor issues. I think by the biggest issue that we were aware of is the payment kiosks on the first floor were not reconfigured to point to the new system, SpryPoint, but we were able to get that resolved the following day on October 11th. So by and large, very successful. And I know that the water billing team has been busy with a lot of new and process improvements and things that they're working through. But it has, we have not heard any major performance issues since that went live. The day after that, we turned on another major integration with Okta, which was very important for the cybersecurity state of the city to help further our the protections that we have in place. So that again, we ramped up, spent a lot of time, and we created some new support methodologies, just anticipating a flood of issues. But within 24 hours, we had a total of 11 issues that were reported to us. And since then, we've only had a handful. So again, very, very successful rollout on that piece. A lot of time and effort went into that. And then finally, the week after that, on Monday the 17th, HR launched the Power DMS system, which is going to house all of the citywide policies, the APMs, the BPMs, the employee handbook. There's a lot of benefit to this system because now as employees review any policies, they can electronically acknowledge that they've read them. And if we have updates to any policies, you know, the employee handbook, as you know, is voluminous. There's pages upon pages. So if that gets updated in the future, again, electronically could push out to notify the employees. You have until X date to review those. And it can take them specifically to the section that has been changed. So they don't have to review the entire set again, unless they want to. They can just see the changes and once again, electronically acknowledge that they've read and agreed to that policy. So that I don't want to steal from HR. HR did a lot of the lion's share of work on that particular one, but we did have to enable some back-end features to support that rollout and again, adjust some of our support model to make sure it was a successful launch. And I have not yet heard of any issues with the rollout of that system. So I will just say real quick, this is a short list looking at it on the screen. But in the 7 years that I've been with the city, IT has never had this many product launches back to back in this short period of time. And the fact that each one of them went off with very minimal issues, we were incredibly happy with and very, very proud of all the work of the teams, not just the IT staff, but the business partners that worked with us to do the testing and the planning for all these rollouts. Any questions on those before I move forward?
Real quick, the Power DMS, is that a component of Workday or is that two separate products?
No, they are two separate products, Councilmember. Workday does not have a document management system that would perform the same function that Power DMS does, but we are evaluating some other features that they have to see how it can integrate with that later on down the road.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. Councilmember Zvonek, any questions?
Nope, not of these.
All right.
Great. So looking forward, we can't sit back and relax. We have a lot going on between now and the end of the year. So we did procure a zero trust platform. I'm guessing the two of you are familiar, but as a quick recap, zero trust basically will allow us to assign policy. So this individual can access this technology when they're on this device. And so if they're on a city issued device, we can give them access to a certain set of applications that they need to get to. If they're on a personal device, we can say, well, because you're on a personal device, you can only access these particular applications. If they don't have either one of those devices, even though they, as the employee, are authorized, they're not using an authorized device, so therefore they can't get to it. So it allows us to put out a lot more granular control around the security state for the city. And it's going to be a monumental, this is a game changer. It's a really big game changer for how we will operate internally in IT, but it's also going to be incredibly beneficial to the city staff. As we're able to start getting things rolled out, we'll be able to streamline some of the ways that staff interact with technology today and make it simpler for them. But that's going to be at least an 18 to 24 month rollout overall. We do have a initiative that was the initial use case for buying this that we do have to have in place by December of this year. So we're working through that diligently right now. As you're aware, ERP is slated to go live December 16th is when we will actually get our hands on the system, the full go live. And that is so that we can make the first payroll of the 2023 calendar year. So this week is again a very important week, right on the heels of the other stuff that we were talking about. Collaborative Solutions, our integrator, is right now spending time this week getting the gold tenant prepped and starting the work to get that built so that we can go live on that date. And meanwhile, the project team, which isn't just IT, but it's ourselves, HR, and finance, are still working through the additional testing features and functions of that system so that we can prep for that go live. It's been a while, but I mentioned back at our last presentation that we have a major initiative this year to retire old systems, either retire them altogether or upgrade them to a later version of Microsoft Windows so that they can be under a support model. We still have some lingering items under there. Fortunately, with the CAD go live and the water billing go live, a big chunk of servers were just retired as a result of that. So we're down to the last few handful that need to be upgraded. So we're continuing to push forward there to make sure we're in a good state by the end of the year. And then looking into next year, ERP phase 2 right now is still on schedule for Q3 of next year go live. We are currently evaluating the Amanda program to move forward with the next steps for the workflow administration. That's for the planning division, ODA, water, and a number of other areas in their workflow process interaction with the development community and just the public at large. So we're working through the scoping of that particular program right now, and we'll be coming back to a council meeting. Maybe not this quarter, depends on how quick the contract phase goes, but definitely by early Q1 of next year to begin the actual work on that system rollout. As far as the Excella system goes, we are now changed our model there to just ongoing sustainment. There was a backlog of requests from the business units that are live on Excella for additional enhancements. And we've actually been able to make a big dent in those, and we're working through them and are on track to get that set of work complete by the end of this year. And then again, we'll continue to support that as an ongoing basis until such time we determine if Excella functions can be migrated elsewhere or if Excella needs to stay around for a longer period of time. So before I move on from that, any questions?
I don't have any. Councilmember Zvonek?
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you, sirs. So quick update on staffing. I thought this might be helpful based on the workshop as well as the discussions last night, just to show you a breakdown of where we're at with vacancies. And we have improved since the last time that I presented to y'all. But it's kind of strange. These come in fits and starts. So as an example, in July, we were able, just out of the blue, suddenly In June timeframe, we had qualified candidates that applied for 5 of our positions, and we interviewed them, and we were able to hire all 5. But the remainder of the positions that are open, we're still not getting qualified candidates to apply. So as I mentioned at the workshop, finance is going, I'm sorry, excuse me, purchasing is going to be issuing the purchase orders to headhunting firms that will hopefully be able to help us fill some of these lingering vacancies. But what the vacancies are in administration, I do have one. And again, that is because I needed to reclass my existing admin support position to a different position so that I could then free up the capability to hire that position that's open. So that has just been completed. We're working through the final steps on the job description there. So we should have that job posting out within the next couple weeks. Under GIS, we're 100% staffed. We're in good shape there. The public safety application team from an FTE count is 100% staffed. We do have 2 contractors that are supporting public safety applications right now. So again, kind of going on piggyback the discussion last night, the way that we use contractors in IT typically, that 4th column over there, contractors for a project, we usually hire a contractor if there is a specific skill set for a project that we're lacking, or if it's that we simply don't have capacity for tasks under a project. We'll usually hire a contractor for that acute period of time. And once we're past that, then we'll let the contractor go. Then the other approach that we've had to start doing this year is actually using contractors to backfill some of those FTE vacancies since they've been open so long. So on the public safety application side, we do have 2 project contractors that we're assisting with the CAD implementation, as well as some of the consent decree monitor data requirements. And they are now moving forward, working on the benchmark analytics system so that we can finalize some of those requirements. And we have a backlog of public safety project requests. So we're evaluating if we're going to need their assistance there or not. The water applications team is fully staffed, no contract assistance there. ERP is fully staffed as well, but we do have one data contractor that's working with us to help with those data migrations from one solution over to Workday. Workflow management is just the title we're using for both Excella and Amanda. These vacancies have been some of the longest standing vacancies. We've had those posted for the better part of 6 months. But in June, when we made the decision, put a pause on Excella development, we also paused the recruitment for these 3 vacancies, because if the city had made the decision to go with the Amanda route, it's a different skill set that's needed to develop against Amanda versus what's needed to develop on Excella. So we put that pause on, but now that we have the direction of moving forward with the Amanda program, we're going to be starting the recruitment for those 3 vacancies there. We do have 2 contractors that have been, again, backfilling in that particular role to help with that ongoing Excella sustainment. And then there was 3 other contractors that have been with the program since Excella started, and those will be getting cut loose here soon once we've wrapped up the final Excella rollout that we've had going on. Enterprise applications is, again, anything that's not specifically dedicated to another program. They are fully staffed. We have no contract assistance there. The end user computing group, we have 1 vacancy today that has been a long-standing vacancy. So we have 2 contractors backfilling right now. And the reason that we have 2 is it took so long to even get 1 contractor. Back between March and July of this year, we couldn't even find contractors to come in and help. So the backlog just grew to such an extent that we actually, once we could get contractors, we brought on 2 of them to try and get caught up. Again, once we were able to fill that vacancy, we should be able to remove those contractors from the role as well. Enterprise networking right now has 1 vacancy, exact same situation. Because of the issue getting contractors, we did hire 2 of them to try and get us caught up. On the enterprise systems, this is servers and storage, we have 2 vacancies now, and we have 2 contractors that are serving in those backfill positions right now while we pinned the backfill. The radio and wireless group, fully staffed, no contractors. Information security has 1 vacancy that's due to an internal promotion. So that job description is with HR now to get finalized so that we can get that posted. We are leveraging 2 contractors. Those aren't specifically because of a backfill. We had one-time appropriation this year to hire some contractors to get us over the hump on a few different information security projects. So we do not foresee that those contractors necessarily will continue into next year, but it also depends on our project workload. Program management is fully staffed, and then Capstick is fully staffed. So, and this is just to show you, pictures worth 1,000 words, just a different distribution. Apologize for the ugly colors there. PowerPoint decided to change my color scheme. But happy to show you or share this with you again, and just showing the breakdown per team, the authorized, the vacancies, whether it's a project contractor or it's a backfill contractor. So before I move on from this, are there any questions?
I don't have any, Councilmember Zvonek.
Nope. One thing on the staffing note that I want to share with council that I'm incredibly happy with and very, very proud of is we partnered with a 501c3 this year. They're called Activate Work. And Activate Work is a unique program. It's only in the state of Colorado right now. What they do is they specifically try to recruit and help people from the hospitality industries, or they might be, in underserved communities, underserved areas, to get them into a better job, into a better career path. And so they only do their training right now in their program for IT roles or healthcare roles. And what they do is they actually take those people and they put them through a 16-week targeted boot camp. It's 40 hours a week in class, as well as about 10 to 12 hours of homework every week. And they come out of that on the other end with a certification. It's an industry recognized IT certification. So we partnered with Activate Work, and 2 of the vacancies we had with end user computing, we were able to place 2 of those individuals, and we were able to go from 3 vacancies down to 2. And they've been working out really, really great. We've had nothing but positive feedback from them. The only downside to them is because they came from a different industry, they are still very green, they are still very new, but they've already hit the ground running and are learning very, very quickly. And when I spoke with the folks at Activate Work, we are the first municipality in the state to partner with them and take on this program. A lot of folks in the private industry have been using their services over the last 18 months. But again, we're the first municipality to do so. When I was at an event with them, a representative from the State Department of Labor also reached out and asked how we were partnering with them and was very excited. And they said they may have some other opportunities where the city can partner with them too. So I'm going to be scheduling a call with myself, Ryan from HR, and Sarah from the DEI office to see what we can do to partner with the Department of Labor as well. Are any questions about that program?
No, but that's great. Thank you for letting us know about that.
Absolutely. Well, my final slide here for you, just to wrap up, I wanted to let you know what we are looking at. So in a nutshell, I will say that IT for probably the last 10 to 15 years has really operated pretty much the same. And obviously things have changed a lot, right? So there's a lot of things that we're going to be doing that we're underway right now, and we're going to continue to do in 2023 to change how IT operates and improve our service delivery and improve the workload for our staff. So we've already got some internal process improvements that are underway right now. This is things like revamping our approach to meetings, making sure that do we have the right people attending the meetings? Why are we inviting 20 people if only one person needs to be there? Not that we've ever invited 20, but you know what I mean? The whole thing of sometimes meetings, you pull in too many people you don't need to have. So the meeting approach, the timeline for meetings, where the de facto is it's 30 minutes, no more. And if it's going to be more, you have to have a very good reason for that. We're using some of those tools that I mentioned earlier, like ServiceNow and a few others, to actually support IT operations so that hopefully we don't need to worry about requesting some additional FTE in some areas, because those automations will help take care of that. Again, today, IT has not received good IT tool sets in at least the last 10 years. And you know how quickly things change in the IT industry. So ServiceNow, an item called Beyond Trust, and another product called Intune are going to completely revolutionize how we take care of some of the functions inside IT with automation. The hope being that that will then streamline and reduce the workload on some of the staff, give them more time to get other stuff done. As you're aware, we're going to be partnering with internal audit on the, as part of their audit plan is an IT audit. As part of that, we are conducting a business survey that will go out to supervisors and above from all business units and really help us understand what is it that IT is doing well for the business units? What is it that IT is not doing well? What are the pain points? What are the good points? So that we can then again evaluate where do we need to redistribute some of our work? Where do we need to focus with those automation tools, or where do we need to focus with the talent that we have? So building on top of that, in 2023, just like audit creates a work plan, we're going to create a work plan. We've always had our project portfolio, but we've never created a comprehensive view of here are all of our ongoing recurring programs that happen quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. Here are the projects that are on the list. Here are things that must be done that don't rise to the level of being a project. We're rolling all those into a work plan so we can build out for the entire year as we know it today, what initiatives that we will have and what the timeline is for those initiatives. The employee culture and engagement survey results have just come out. So we'll be working with city management on the next steps to have the improvement recommendations from there and layering that in with our initiatives that we go forward with in 2023. And again, that may change, that may result, all of that may result in some org design and functional distribution changes, right? Maybe we have a little few too many bodies in enterprise apps, and maybe we could move them over to a different team to help support them there. So we're really going to look at that distribution of work, and that'll be in a combination of the internal audit results as well as that business survey that we get back. And then finally, once we have that work plan, really working on enhancing our overall project intake process and what the overall governance process is for new initiatives as they go forward. And with that, sir, that is the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you, Scott. Councilmember Zvonek, any questions?
Nope, I don't have any. Thanks for the update, Scott.
Yep, I don't have
Yes,
any.
thank you.
Appreciate the update. Thank you. All right, last item on our agenda, internal audit update.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Crawford. I'm going to be giving the update today. In your packet was the full third quarter update for everybody. I'm going to be going over the highlights for you. As of September 30th, 68% of our engagements are either active or have been completed for the year. Current engagements in process are the mayor and city council operating expenses, the IT operational assessment that Scott mentioned, a revised approach to the youth violence program, looking at a limited view of expenses for that program, and the gun evidence process review. Additionally, we've recently completed and are finalizing the citywide culture survey and the body-worn camera audits. Additionally, for recommendations, there's approximately 17% of the recommendations that are still pending outstanding. We're actively engaging with departments, especially for those older recommendations, to address those, but we're continuing to see progress there. The citywide and the police audit plans have been approved by the city manager, and they'll be coming to this committee in November for your affirmation. Additionally, in November, we'll be presenting the results of the citywide culture survey. And that's kind of the overall update today, pretty short and quick. Do you have any questions for us?
I had one question, and I can't recall if we talked about it before or not, but on the marijuana enforcement division engagement, why was that canceled?
Councilmember Gardner, this is Wayne Summer. There was transition that took place in the leadership of that area when Robin left.
Yeah.
And at the same time, leading up to her departure, they were in the process of actually developing policies and procedures, formal policies and procedures. And we had postponed it because we wanted to make sure there was something there to review. And now that area is under new leadership. They're getting their ducks in a row, and so the evaluation of whether that will become an engagement in the future will be part of the quarterly risk assessment that will be done throughout 2023 and beyond.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Wayne. Councilmember Zvonek, any questions?
Yeah, just one quick, Michelle. So I know I don't have any questions about the things you presented, but at the workshop, we talked with the city manager about doing an evaluation of the public defender's office, and then specifically afterwards, he and I talked about looking at the cases that we take on in the municipal courts. Has he looped your team in? Is that something you're going to be engaged with, or has he talked to you about that at all?
We've not spoken yet, but I do have my meeting with him on Thursday, so I can definitely discuss that with him to see what our next approach would be.
Okay, yeah, because I do think that, and I'll mention it to him too, but I do think that having your team involved in that, because it's beyond, I mean, the public defender's office is one portion of it, but there really is, I think, an opportunity to look at, the outcomes of the cases that are coming to municipal court as opposed to going to county, and whether or not they should actually be coming to the municipal court. But I'll let you two discuss, and I'll mention it to him as well.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Michelle, for the updates. All right. Next, I guess that's the last item. So under miscellaneous, we have our November meeting. That is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I'm in town, but Councilmember Zvonek, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm around.
Okay. Well, Terry, let's plan on that. I don't know. I assume we'll have most staff. Maybe if we don't have a staff member for whatever reason for an item, we can do it in December or figure out something else. But could we just plan on keeping that date if that works for you? I will.
This is Roberto Curtis. I'll take care of that. Make sure that Terry and I coordinate on that date and make sure we have staff available if we have agenda items.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Roberto.
Thanks.
All right, with that, we will go ahead and adjourn. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Thanks all. Bye.